Hello, welcome back, and delighted to see the speakers are ready. And we're now going to have a challenging session because we have more speakers than usual. And this is because we're very lucky and everybody we asked could make it in the end. And they were also interesting. We felt it was very important to make sure everybody would be there. So I'm going to ask the speakers to be as fast as you can, but saying the main things. In many ways, I see this as the first time that we have this discussion about the future of homes, the Global Observatory of Long-Term Care. And I hope that from here we will develop more conversations. And I do hope also that there may be the beginnings of a new interest group on looking at maybe care home design and making care homes more places that are people's homes. So I'm really, really excited to have you on board. I won't take the time now to say more. And I don't see Mara among the speakers. So we're going to very swiftly, and I hope that's okay with you, move to Reena. So Reena, are you ready?
Yes, I am.
Great. So can you join? Thank you.
No problem. Hi, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Reena Devi. I'm an associate professor at the University of Leeds, and I'm also a scientific linking pin in the Niche Leeds partnership. And Niche Leeds stands for Nurturing Innovation in Care Home Excellence. And in this presentation, I'll describe what it is and how we work together with care homes to produce impactful research. So Niche Leeds started in 2018. And it's a formal partnership between universities and Leeds and care providers. And the Niche Leeds model is a replication of the Dutch Living Lab model that originated in Maastricht over 25 years ago. And the aim of Niche Leeds is to improve quality of care, quality of life, and quality of work in care homes. And the way that we do this is through really close collaborative working with care home stakeholders on topics that matter. And that close working with staff, the residents, and family and friends is at the heart of Niche Leeds, and it's the fundamental, one of our fundamental values. And also key in Niche Leeds is a role called the scientific and practice linking pin. And I'm just going to stop and show you a video which describes how scientific and practice linking pins work.
We're going to give you a snapshot of one of the important roles in the partnership called the linking pin role.
We have scientific linking pins who are researchers employed at the university and practice-based linking pins who are employed at care organisations, and together we are the bridge between academia and care home practice. As scientific linking pins, we are regularly in the care home, and this allows us to understand what really matters to the people who live, work and visit care homes. Once we know what matters, we work on getting scientifically tested solutions to care homes. We translate academic evidence into user-friendly formats and language. And when there is a gap in knowledge, we design and conduct research projects. And throughout our work, we work with residents, their families and staff, who then also join research teams as equal collaborators. Next, you'll hear from some of our practice-based linking pins who describe examples of how we've been working together in this partnership.
Hi, my name is Magda. I'm a care home nurse for Westwood Care, and I'm also a practice linking pin. Being a practice linking pin matters to me because I can help close the gap between evidence and practice. In 2018, a care worker asked, how can I help residents with their mouth care, particularly when they resist this care? There was evidence which describes strategies that help with providing mouth and oral care to older people, and we work together on translating that evidence into niche know-how. We also work together on addressing staff training needs, and we applied for research funding to understand more about how to support care home staff with providing mouth and oral care. We were successful in getting research funding, and we are working on understanding how to better support care staff to carry out effective mouth minutes in their work.
Hello, I'm Maria. In 2021, I started working as a practice linking pin within my role at Springfield Care Villages. And being a practice linking pin means that I promote and enable the connection between the care homes and researchers. I've always been curious about research, and I recognize how important it is. Having this opportunity of being a practice linking pin, I wondered how I could develop my research skills and even think of the possibility of pursuing a career in research. Through Niche and Leeds University, I learned that the National Institute for Health and Care Research had funding available to support social care professionals. So I applied for a Career Development Award that was successful. This funding is supporting me to complete a Master's in Dementia Studies, to develop my research skills, to have the mentorship of the academics of Leeds University, and to develop my professional and academic network. I hope to develop the knowledge that will enhance the quality of life of people that live in care homes. We hope that you have enjoyed this video, and if you'd like to know more, please feel free to contact us. Thank you.
So as you've heard from the video, in the Niche Leeds Partnership, it's all about that close working between researchers and our care home partners. And we do this throughout the whole research cycle. So right from the beginning, so identifying the topics that matter to the residents, the family and friends, and also staff. So we identify the topics that matter, shape a research question, design and carry out research studies together, interpret findings, and embed evidence into practice. So it's throughout the whole research cycle. And as you can see on this slide, we're working on a variety of different topics, and I'm just going to describe a couple of examples around the social care workforce topic, around how we're working to embed evidence into practice, but also generate questions and design research studies. So right before the Niche Leeds Partnership even started, the academic lead, Professor Karen Spursbury, led a huge research study. It was a large mixed method study looking at how staff influence quality in care homes. And one key part of the findings was that staff recruitment and retention is really, really important for quality of care and life in care homes. And so we applied for funding to look at this even further. So we were successful in getting research funding to do a big literature review on staff recruitment and retention. So we used a realist synthesis approach. It's quite a complex and comprehensive approach to reviewing literature. So it took a number of years, and we finished the study this year, and the final report is around 180 pages long, and unfortunately not many people will be having the time to read through all of that. So the next key step was then to translate the findings into a language and a format that was easy to use and quick to access. And so with one of our care home partners, we worked together with HR and senior staff. We formed a working group, and we, over the series of a few months and iterative meetings, we developed something that we called a niche know-how. So niche know-hows are basically resources that we design for the care homes, and the resources are based on evidence. And in this example, it's the REACH know-how, because that's what the study acronym was called. So we've got this REACH know-how. It's now a 12-page document, not the 180-page final report. So this document is really key because it gives key messages for different groups of staff and how they can influence staff recruitment and retention. And we're working on embedding those findings into practice. So this kind of quick description of what we did here is just to give you a flavour of how we take topics that matter to care homes and do studies and translate the findings so that they're useful and accessible to care homes. Another example here that I'm going to describe is how we identify questions and topics to work on. So a key part of the REACH study that I previously described was to consult regularly with care home stakeholders to sense check draft findings. And in one of our stakeholder consultation meetings, a care worker asked about whether the findings represented what male care workers thought. And actually, this was a really important question because the evidence reflects the current workforce demographics, which is, of course, mostly female staff. And so this question we took to what we'd already done the literature review, so we knew that this was a big gap. And so we sense checked this topic and question with a wide range of stakeholders. So more frontline staff, both male and female, and night and day staff. Also family and friends and residents. And with that sense checking exercise, it was to understand, do other people think that this is important? Should we be doing more work on this? And it was clear that this was definitely a gap, and it was something that was important for a wide range of stakeholders. So then this led us on to bringing together a team with a relevant skill mix to be able to understand this topic more. And last year we designed a research study and applied for funding, and we were successfully awarded funding, and we've started the project now, and it's called the MEND study. And again, this is just a really quick overview of how a question came from one of our care home partners, and a member of staff asked a question, and we developed research to address their question. So the Niche Leeds Partnership is all about bringing evidence-based solutions to the topics and questions that are asked in care homes. And this is a really nice example of one care worker asking a question, but actually when we looked into it, it's actually something that people are thinking about internationally and across the country. So the questions and topics that come up are relevant at that international and national level. And so the Niche Leeds Partnership is 6 years old. Last year we celebrated our 5th birthday. Here's some pictures of our celebration from last year. And I just wanted to end showing you a quote from one of our family and friend representatives.
Thank you very much, Reena. And it's really fantastic to have this overview of how you're really working on research that will for sure be relevant to care homes, and how this very deep link you are creating over time is leading such good fruits. And of course, this idea came from the Netherlands initially, and Mara has been able to join us. So Mara Brouwers, welcome. And you're from the Living Lab in Aging Long-Term Care in Maastricht, and we're going to talk about innovative living arrangements for older persons. All yours, Mara.
Yes, so today I would like to tell something about innovative living arrangements for older persons. And as has been said, I'm a part of the Living Lab in Aging and Long-Term Care. And I think Reena has already told a lot about that, so I will keep it short and sweet. So it's a collaboration between the university, vocational training schools, and care organizations. And together we make sure that we ask the right questions and answer the right questions. And as a part of a specific research line, we focus on changes in long-term care and also the culture change that is going on, because you see that there is less focus on the medical side and the institutionalized setting, and more on a focus on living in nursing homes, where there's a lot of emphasis in creating quality of life and increasing well-being, but also really feeling at home, so making a home with care. And you see that there's a lot of focus on the influence of the physical care setting. So you see that it's really important to, there's more an emphasis on creating smaller groups with a home-like atmosphere. And there's a lot of emphasis on empowering older people, also people with dementia. And you can see that the care environment has a large influence on the daily life and well-being of older people, especially when they're living with dementia. And we use a framework to explain this care environment. So I already mentioned shortly the physical environment. So the way that the physical environment is shaped influences the daily life. And for example, if residents are easily able to engage in meaningful activities, remain physically active, and other aspects of daily life, but also the social aspects. So how do staff members work, or how is the community involved? What role do family members have? And as a sort of hat, you have the organizational perspective that actually enables the physical and social environment to function optimally, but also to create a certain vision that the entire organization implements in all these locations. And when those three environments align perfectly, then you create an innovative living arrangement. And I can imagine maybe some people already have a vision of what an innovative living arrangement means, but I can also imagine that it's quite abstract. So to gain more insight into what exactly is an innovative living arrangement, we performed a scoping review. I will not bore you with the details. It's already published, so if you're interested, please contact me and then I will gladly send it. So we'll just move on to the results. We included 65 articles, and it's a global phenomenon. So you can see that there are innovative living arrangements in different countries, but you see that there's quite large amounts that's performed in the Netherlands. And we identified 7 really the concrete concepts and 1 more of an other category that didn't really belong to any of the more well-known, bigger innovative living arrangements. And I will just quickly go through them to give you more a bit of an image of what an innovative living arrangement can be. So the first one is probably quite a well-known one. That's the small-scale living model, which is founded originally in the Netherlands and in Belgium. And it really focuses on normalizing daily life. So you really form a household together with staff members, and there's a really clear integration of tasks. So you do not have a nurse and someone who entertains residents, but you really have shared responsibility in all tasks. And then you have the greenhouse model, which is also, I think, a more well-known one that originates from the United States, where you have really specific staff roles. But again, you can see that there's a bit of an integration because the emphasis is less on the nurse as a central person and more on someone who looks at the daily lives of residents and really has a central role in that part. And you see that the teams are often self-monitored. So instead of having one manager telling everyone what to do, you have a team that works together in how the daily care should be presented. And you have the shared housing arrangements. They originate from Germany. And there is the role of family very important. So family has a really active role, not only in moving the residents towards that arrangement, but also how the daily life, again, of resident looks like. It's often in a more urban setting. And it's interesting to see that there's often a separation between living, so actually renting an apartment, and the deliverance of care. Then you have the green care farms. It also originates in the Netherlands, and it has a really strong focus on the combination of agriculture and nature combined with nursing home care. And you see that either the care or the agriculture is a source of income, but usually there's a strong emphasis on the care side, and they use the agriculture to create meaningful activities and to support their vision. Then you have the dementia village. The most well-known one is Hogewijk. And they create a sense of community by creating a shielded village, and they match residents based on their lifestyle to make sure that there's a good resident match. Group homes, they have some they are quite similar to small-scale living. Their origin is from Japan. They create, again, home-like and small-scale environments, and they emphasize participation in daily life, such as daily household tasks. And then you have intergenerational living, where young and old live together, and there's a really strong emphasis on involving the neighborhood. One more known example is called Humanitas, where students live together with older adults. Okay, so these sounded quite specific. You can see some overlap, but they're obviously not entirely similar. But still, you have some overarching themes that I would shortly like to discuss with you. So first of all, in all locations, it's really important to promote autonomy. So that's the basis of all these living arrangements, that residents are able to live the life the way they want to live their life, and that they feel like they are engaging in meaningful activities. Second, you see in a lot of these concepts that there's an emphasis on small scale and home-like environments. You often see that the larger buildings have long wide halls, a bit of the stereotype of a nursing home, and you can see that in those new living arrangements you really try to create a homely setting so that residents feel at home. As I mentioned, the integration of work tasks is very important. To create a sense of shared, how do you call it? To create a sense of shared responsibility. So it's not like, okay, you are responsible for care tasks, you're responsible for well-being. It's really integrated to be able to form a household. Also, the involvement of community is important, either by creating an inside community, such as in the dementia village, where they really create a really private, separate community on their own, or by involving the outside community, which you see in intergenerational living, where you combine people who are in need of care with people who are not. You see in a subpart that there is a focus on nature. So there are some settings that are quite urban-based, but there are also some settings who really shape their vision around nature. And last, you have the involvement of family members. So this is quite, you can see that there are quite some stakeholders that they want to involve next to residents. So it's either the staff who form a household, creating a community inside of outside, or really actively involving family members and making sure that they are part of the community. And you can see that there is, again, a lot of diversity in housing options. Even though we have identified some common elements, there's still a lot of diversity. It's either more larger scale, more small scale, it's urban, or it's more focused on nature. And it's still developing and it's still growing. So when you look at the future direction of our research line as a whole, we would like to gain more insight into the diversity of housing and how it could possibly positively impact residents. You also see a lot of use of technology and artificial intelligence in long-term care, which is also a really developing part of future care that we would like to explore. And you can also see that there are changing roles in caregiving, both when you look at informal care and formal care. One of the examples is, as I mentioned, the integrated care tasks. And there's a lot of organizational impact on all these systems. And for future directions, it's really important to gain more insight into those elements. But our end goal, our most important goal, is to ensure that in the end, we do not have an institutionalized setting where people go because they need care, but to create a feeling of homeness, to create a home where care is delivered as well. And I hope that I am in time, but thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Mara. It's quite a marathon today, and but this is a fantastic overview of the different types of models. And you're very welcome to share a link to your paper in the chat. and we can also include it in the resources that we'll share when we share the video. So now we're going to go over to Elisa Pozo Menéndez. Elisa is from Matia Instituto in Spain, and they're also doing a lot of innovation in changing how care homes in Spain are like. Elisa, all yours.
Hello, good afternoon. Thank you very much for the invitation. I will share the screen. Perfect. So, what we are going to share is the learnings that we have. Sorry, the learnings we have developed in to design the spaces for living and well-being in care homes under the institutionalization process that is running at the national level in Spain. The project is called Como en Casa, which is like from home to home. And the institutionalization framework, what is trying to promote is to change the culture of care for people who need support. And from Matia Institute, what we are working is specifically in care homes for old people. So in this sense, our work is structured under these main topics. So we believe that the big infrastructure that we usually have in Spain and in many countries should be divided and adapted to housing in living units. Also the work within the community, the transformation of roles in the care networks, the environments and spaces as facilitators for these different roles and providing the care for all the people, and also tools and systems based on the person-centered approach. At the end, what we provide and the main objective is that people can choose their lives and that they can have their own plan. So what we have been working was in 17 care homes. We have first analyzed the real situation of the care homes. We visited these 17 centers that are divided in two different regions, one of the Basque Country and then Asturias, which are in the north of Spain. And we have analyzed both public and private care homes. So there were great diversity and heterogeneity. We had big infrastructure, so the ones that were little ones. But in all of the contexts, we found a similar situation. So what we did was first this participatory review of going to all the spaces and analyze with different indicators. Then design also a methodology for raising awareness and empowering the core teams about what is about a home-like environment to facilitate this change of care, and also to promote that people consider the environment as facilitator for this person-centered care approach. And then after the training of the core teams, we also collect the results and the data from these best practices. So as I told, first it was the revision of which study cases we had, these 17 centers, and also we are under the institutionalization process. So it's important also to note that some of the projects had investment to transform effectively the buildings, but other ones don't. So at this moment, we wanted also to encourage the teams to start doing things, no matter if they had a big funding or not, but we wanted that they feel this the importance of the space to create this home-like environment and to create routines that are meaningful for people. So we develop a first draft of what we call a magazine, like the ones you can see in the hairdresser or in any dining room. And we designed this participatory tool for environmental evaluation to work in different aspects that are helping to create better environments and well, with the vision of universal accessibility, dementia-friendly spaces, and also interior design that normally no one is caring, for example, about lighting or about materials. So we tried to make it easy to consider these aspects when we talk about home-like environment. So we accompany also the core teams in this training. In some cases, it was a participatory process to select materials and also to help them in specific proposals they were carrying with families or the people that live in the centers. But in other cases, it was a general training for trainers, these core teams, and then they develop and we accompany them into these specific changes and transformation they were proposing. So these are some of the meetings we developed. We share this first draft of the magazine, and we try to then collect all the information from the experience that we had in the different centers. So in some cases, there were some rooms that were completely removed and reorganized with different furniture. In other cases, they create new environments with higher investments. For example, this case, you can see the same room, but with a big investment that make a very impressive change. And also, well, with a small investment, we can also see how the environment can transform and feel more home-like. The participation of the families, the people that work in these unit livings is very important. Even if we have the same intervention in some spaces, we see the differences of a home-like environment when the people feel that is their space. They start to put different objects that are meaningful for them, and they start creating this new atmosphere that is both physical and social. So it's a joint effort to make the teams understand how important is that the environment represents also the different routines of the people that are currently living there. Also, we provided easy tips for, as I told, as universal accessibility. So, for example, the contrast, that to provide easy ways of improving the daily lives for people. And the final version is published, so you can download it and is available online. And we collected over 57 responses about different aspects that could be improved. So this is some of the examples of the information that is included. We tried not only to create an easy language from the interior design, but also to add tips that can be easily implemented. And the topics that we covered was about spatial organization, the circulation, to not only think about the care home environment, but also the functionality of the spaces, contact with nature, lighting, sensual comfort, the use of colors and materials, which kind of furniture we should use, and some recommendations, the personal objects, and also positive stimuli. These are the different sections of the magazine. So we included practical tips and easy ones, so everybody could start doing something, even though they didn't have a lot of funding. And well, what we learned was about this the institutionalization process is normally related with this idea of needing a lot of investment to implement officially the living units and restructure the whole infrastructure. But what we felt on the other side is that when we start with little changes, this resistance to change, to the change of roles, the person-centered approach, the inclusion of the families and caregivers in the daily routines and the different aspects, with these small transformations, they start to see changes faster, sorry, and they get engaged easily. So we try to provide these inspiring materials with these practical actions, and well, we still have to work a lot between this confusion between decoration and handicrafts, or the basic training also for a efficient and functional spatial organization. But the results were quite impressive, and the feeling of creating a team that is working towards this transformation of the institutionalization was really impressive. So you can scan the QR, and I will also share in the chat the information.
Thank you so much. I was just going to ask you to share the resources as well in the chat. Thank you very much, Elisa. I'm looking forward to seeing how this project continues, and we'll be following closely. So we're now going to go to Norway, and Frode, I think I saw you earlier, and we're going to hear about the built environment of Norwegian care homes in an international perspective, and we'll hear about some promising and some not so promising trends. All yours, Frode.
Yeah, so thank you so much for the invitation. Yeah, I was invited to say something about Norwegian perspectives on care homes, and I'll try and do that. Can you see everything in presentation mode? Is that functioning?
Yes, perfect.
Oh, wonderful. So background from my talk is really started from the earliest research work I did ever, which was in the Norwegian care home starting in 1988, so it's quite a while ago. I kept the link with that institution, but also included other institutions later on to get a comparative perspective. But anyhow, my first field work was 1.5 years in that particular nursing home. So that was a start that sparked my interest forever in the care homes, really as a rich world in itself. The other inspiration has been a part of a York University led investigation in 6 countries since 2010 and until present day, where Norway has been part of that, where we started with care homes the first 10 years, and then doing everything from field work to big data, and we went on with the project focusing more on age-friendly environments and having a broader view on aging and living well. So anyhow, as for Norway, we still have a high coverage of care homes or nursing homes compared to maybe the rest of the world, but at least compared to the other Scandinavian countries, mostly with the singular occupancies with own bathroom. I think that's close to 97% right now. Smaller wards, 8 to 10 residents, is quite common, and averagely relatively good building standard. Relatively well staffed in an international perspective, and also with a relatively high formal staff competence, so that approximately 75% have a formal health background of at least 2 years. So as you can imagine, it's also made possible with a economy fueled by oil. so it's also things that that was made possible with a fortunate economic situation. Unfortunately, we have a high level of absenteeism or sick leave that we really don't understand why, and we are trying really to research into that too. There is substantial variation in how individual nursing home performance as to staffing, building standards, and more. So, and we have more than 315 municipalities, which are some of them tiny and some of them larger. So that also makes a difference. So anyhow, Norwegian care homes, they are health institutions subject to health legislation. So the Norwegian term sykehjem literally means home for sick people. I mean, since the beginning of those institutions, there has been a complex development with recently two opposite trends towards smaller and more home-like institutions, but also development towards larger institutions, not the least the last 5 years, stressing a protective and more clinical environment. So it's going a bit backwards in history, really. And also the dementia villages that are also large, but probably much more promising with inspiration from the Netherlands. In Denmark and Sweden, by contrast, care homes are subject to social and housing legislation, and that makes a difference. And really also, I mean, pay attention more to care homes as the last home for most people living there. Anyhow, their coverage of care home beds has decreased steeply. Here goes an early example of a Norwegian nursing home, which used to be a tuberculosis home for some years, and then a psychiatric hospital, and well, it's kind of typical of early nursing homes. Here is a much later one from the 70s, but also still, as you can see, rather hospital-like. This one too, celebrating in a way that nature, peace, and quiet. Towards more recent development, and this is one of the more smaller nursing home, where a connection to the neighborhood, to the wider community is paid more attention to, and where really both outwards and inward architecture and design is more home-like. So here is an illustration of development of their, you can see a typical nursing home corridor from former times, and a recent one with more bent corridor, definitely more home-like. Also, you can see a typical older resident room with a more home-like modern one. Anyhow, there are some dilemmas that are visible in architecture and planning. Trying to foster more age friendliness, should one focus on the healthiest or the most frail and vulnerable? That has consequences for how to plan for the physical environment. Should it be a protected or open environment for people with dementia and other frailty, stressing private or public areas, focusing in our environment or surroundings and neighborhoods? What balance should there be between universal design and unique identity of a place and the building? Should it be environments attending to everyone or to particular groups? So as for focus on the healthiest or the frailest, some of the more successful developments that we have seen in our country really allow for passive activities, and where people might really be surrounded by meaningful activities. So I mean, even moving around in a wheelchair, turning to where action is, being able to look out of the window for children playing, for people shopping, for a sports field or whatever, really makes this a different place for people living there. So it looks like attending to the frailest really is a benefit for all people living there. So there are some very new nursing homes just built before COVID hit, where they had one side of the nursing homes that had a beautiful view towards the landscape, towards mountain and a beautiful lake and so on. And the other side, there was a parking lot, there was a school, there were a shopping mall, and all people wanted rooms with a views towards activities. So they had problems with getting people moving into the rooms that the architects would think this is the cream of the cake. But anyhow, so the home-like activities are also so important. And in Swedish cases, we studied in the Toronto-led project, where they had a tumble dryer and laundry machine in each and every resident room, for example, really also made a difference, and really also made even some of the frailest who could just observe those activities feel much more at home and really staying more awake during the day. Here is an example of this popular view, not towards the lake and the mountains. Should it be a protected or open environment for people with dementia and other frailty? I think the clinical stress in Norwegian nursing home is both for good and for worse. But it's definitely not only a blessing. It's helpful with having enough competence for dealing, for example, with the people with dementia suffering from pain, and things really needing a strong professional background. But really, the places where people felt the most meaningful environment and felt more at home, where you had co-location, less protection, more risk, but more life. So this is an example of a nursing home where you had a municipality swimming hall, you had a kids playing in the yard, you have a shopping mall nearby, a church, and so on. Here is a co-location in one building with different shops, wine shop, shop for agricultural products. You had a library, you had a GP's office, you had a lot of different things where family would visit, not only for the resident in the care home, but also doing different errands at the same time. So they had more frequent visit and better contact with family. So there are different cases of a co-location. I won't, for the sake of time, I won't go into detail with them, but there are definitely some promising practices. There are some benefits of co-location, like a diverse and meaningful environment within easy reach, but also for frail people, intergenerational meeting places, easier for relatives to visit, which I find more and better explored I have to say, in Denmark than in Norway. Focus on public areas hasn't historically been the priority, but the most successful places really focus on the physical environment. In contrast to Denmark, we don't have much of special purpose nursing homes regarding ethnicity, religion. occupational background, sexual orientation, or whatever it could be. I think that's an area where Norway has a lot to learn. There is a less promising trend, as I said, of bigger and more efficient institutions, larger wards, units, increasing frailty and multimobility in nursing homes as justification for more hospital-like environments. And anyhow, there are also, as I pointed to, opposing trends as well. So anyhow, where do we go from here? Architecture geared towards clinical efficiency and cost savings, larger institutions, less developed common areas, universal design prioritized more than a unique identity of places, or the less clinical trend towards more home-likeness and inclusion in the wider society and local community, with more investment in common areas and with co-location and community integration, with less isolation and more intergenerational contact. Anyhow, Norway is in a good economic situation and I think could do better. With a strong political stress on smart future care, there is a need really to look backwards and to look at what functioned so far up to now in the past. So the most promising care homes tend to be well-staffed, small or medium-sized, integrated into local neighborhoods, designed for a broader range of social activities, also passive, and also attending to local history and characteristics. Thanks.
Thank you so much for this overview and this discussion of trends. And maybe there is also attention about the role of care homes, especially when hospitals don't want people to stay very long. And sometimes there's a role also for even step-down facilities, or that in some countries are developed. And I wonder whether some tensions might also be in that direction. We're going to go to Dimitra Xiodous. She's from Trinity House and the Center for Social Innovation at Trinity College Dublin, and you're going to present on rethinking the design of care homes for inclusion, quality of life, and resilience. All yours, Dimitra.
Great, thanks, Adelina. Just going to share my slides here now. So just mindful of time, I might just speed through a couple of my introductory slides because I was trying to set a bit of context and then just moving into the meat of the matter. But yes, so for today, we're going to talk about rethinking the design of care homes for inclusion, quality of life, and resilience. And as Adelina said, my name is Dimitra Xiodous, and I'm a research fellow with Trinity House. Just a quick introduction on Trinity House. It was formed in 2008 to provide innovative built environment solutions for buildings, neighborhoods, and cities. And in recent years, the center has increasingly been involved in built environment projects, looking at health, well-being across the life course, inclusion, and sustainability. So within that, and thinking about our research in this area, we're looking at integrated approaches to aging in place and the role of the built environment in supporting health and well-being. And within this space, we've done a number of projects that are looking at the role of the built environment in balancing quality of life, infection control, and resilience from a number of Irish funders, including the Health Research Board. We're currently just finished the research phase of one of our projects looking at planning and design of care homes in Ireland, and developing a set of guidelines from a universal design approach. So I think with that kind of quick introduction there, I'll go right into a bit of context around some challenges and opportunities that we're finding in the research here. Now, some of them are coming from our research here in an Irish context, but they are definitely things that we see kind of scaled out both at the European level and at the international level. Now, I won't go through this entire slide. This would take maybe another 10 minutes to go through everything, but just wanted to highlight a couple of things. And one of those things to start is the perception of residential long-term care. So generally speaking, the perception of nursing homes is still, at least in an Irish context, seen as very institutional, and there's a very negative connection to that. And this, when you kind of dig into it as well, kind of, you know, it's clear that there's also issues around our own relationship to aging and, you know, persistence of ageism, and framing the aging process as a us versus them, young versus old, rather than understanding and embracing the fact that we are all actively aging and moving along the life course. And I think with the aim, we all would like to grow old as well as we possibly can. So there's a need to shift this perspective and to create spaces for more positive views of growing older, ones that value and recognize the contribution that we do and can make in society and in our communities. Another challenge just to highlight, and I think everybody remembers the COVID-19 pandemic, and in Ireland again, the experience exposed major weaknesses in Irish long-term care settings, with Ireland being one of the worst in terms of poor health outcomes and death for older people living in long-term care. I think that Ireland came second only to Canada in this regard. In the context of this, the National Public Health Emergency Team recommended the establishment of an expert panel on nursing homes in 2020 to examine the complex issues related to COVID-19, and in specific reference to the built environment, noted in one of its recommendations that incentives, including financial, must be explored to help provide a wider range of services and ownership models for both care in the home and in smaller congregated units and settings. And then finally, just also flag climate change is an emerging issue, and it's something that we definitely are thinking about when we think about the design of residential long-term care, and keeping in mind that older populations are more vulnerable to climate-induced effects, as they are more likely to have underlying chronic health conditions and complications. So the role of design here is really important, such that poor building design and the lack of effective heat management and diverging needs and preferences between staff and residents in care settings may contribute to increased indoor heat exposure. So the challenges notwithstanding, there are also major opportunities to rethink how we reconsider what residential long-term care can look like. And there are several frameworks at both the Irish, European, and international level that can help us reconceptualize how the built environment can be a caring environment and support health and well-being across the life course. And these are some of the ones listed on this slide here, so I won't go into too much detail there. But I think this is a nice foundation to then bring us into some of the key issues around planning and design. And for us here in Trinity House, we view the neighborhood scale as critically important and plays an incredible function in creating and supporting caring urbanism. And so neighborhoods here for us are the building blocks of towns and cities. People live most of their lives in their local neighborhoods, and for some, including children and older people, the neighborhood is more significant. So both in terms of people's health and the health of the planet, if we're unable to make neighborhoods healthy and sustainable, as well as inclusive, caring places, then we will not have healthy and sustainable cities. This aligns very well with concepts such as aging in place, so that people stay connected to and engaged in their communities. So this means, in the first instance, supporting people to live at home for as long as possible, but where needs become more complex and requiring more in-depth medical care and support, it is crucial that residential long-term care settings themselves are located with and in communities and not at the outskirts. So in this way, we can maintain a sense of connection and a sense of place. So with all that in mind, now we can move into the spatial scales. And again, just building on what I've said before, the critical importance of location and integration with community. And here our research is showing us that proximity to a person's home, community, if they have to leave their home to go into a residential long-term care setting, is crucially important because it allows for retaining a sense of home and familiarity and connectedness to place. It allows people to stay close to family, neighbors, and friends. And this was critically important during COVID-19 to be able to have family living close by nursing homes so that visits could take place, and as well as keeping contact with local and familiar and favorite places. In addition, nursing homes that are located close to community spaces, services, and amenities makes communities more accessible. So in terms of thinking about easy access to public transport, for example, wheeling, walking, and cycling, all of these things are really important so that older people can retain a sense of connectedness and engagement with their communities. Here, just to also talk a little bit about the models of care, and I think this has been talked about in a number of the other presentations around the size and scale and the importance of household models. So those that are typically have less than 12 residents, these have been shown to improve quality of life. Now, they can be part of a larger setting as long as these settings are then broken down into these more manageable household models. There's a few models here that share this household, domestic, smaller scale approach. And here in Ireland, we have the Trilog model, which was developed here to promote a model of care that better resembles the older person's home life. So it follows a person-centered approach to support a more domestic lifestyle. The butterfly care model, which was developed in the UK in the 90s, which focuses on putting people before tasks and creating a home-like environment, particularly in dementia facilities. And I think Mara mentioned the greenhouse model before, that was developed in the US, again, a very small scale nursing home model. Here, just to show you on this slide, the research that we're doing as part of the Health Research Board, we've gone out to 12 different case studies across Ireland, looking at best practice examples. And these are 3 that we've gone to that have employed this kind of smaller scale model in how they break out the built environment. So in Drogheda, you see the larger setting being broken down into 3 households. Down here on the bottom left, you have St. Joseph's in Dublin, which is a dementia setting and employs the butterfly model, and it's broken down into 6 households. And then finally, Carebright in Bruff is a really unique and very special site, and it was a delight to go and visit it this summer. Again, broken down to 3 households. It's dementia specific, but what was really lovely about this one, and indeed in the other 2 as well, but at least for me when we visited, what struck me the most was being able to go into people's homes and not only see them and recognize them visually as home-like places, but walking through the kitchen and hearing dishes being washed in the sink, or hearing the laundry being put on, or in one instance also being there and watching people cook. I mean, it's not just about what you see, but it's also that entire kind of sensory and sensual relationship that people have to home, and that we can all recognize the sounds of home when we're in them. Again, just moving down to a couple of the other spatial scales that we're looking at. So in terms of site design, a connected, welcoming, accessible, and pleasant setting that has good contact with nature is really, really important. So high quality outdoor spaces provide good contact with nature, fresh air, sunlight, outdoor spaces for exercise, and they support a range of other important quality of life issues. During COVID-19, these were also noted to kind of lower infection risk by having access to the outdoor spaces. And then also just thinking about a site layout and boundaries that allow residents to watch the world go by from their bedrooms, sitting rooms, balconies, or verandas, or from a garden, can provide a point of interest for residents and keep them connected to the community. And also community members can see, people living in their community who are representing different age groups as well. And that's really important in terms of fostering intergenerational living. Overall building configuration, and also thinking not just about buildings that are one floor, but have multiple floors. So again, breaking out the overall building into smaller units, create a more human-like scale to help with legibility and navigation, providing multiple access points for each household, and providing good direct access to outdoor spaces, and also providing good internal walking routes with resting areas and points of interest that are easy to access to the outside. Here in the bottom left is one of our other case studies that we visited over the summer. This was in Kinsale in Cork, and the outdoor space and the rooftop terrace was actually one of the more wonderful spaces to be in terms of its use by residents, but also learning that it was vital and crucial for them during the COVID-19 pandemic to be able to help residents on higher level floors being able to access outdoor space was vital for them. In terms of key internal spaces, looking here at shared living, kitchen, and dining areas. So again, how the household models can typically provide a central, shared, spacious communal area that is composed of a living area, open kitchen and dining area, allows for socialization, but again, is also more home-like. And then when we get down to bedrooms, thinking about spacious single bedrooms with private ensuite bathrooms are really critically important, and bedrooms that also are provided with large windows with good views to the outside, and ideally a small private outdoor space in the form of a terrace or balcony. And here on the right-hand side at the bottom, you'll see that this is an example of one of the bedroom spaces in the care home in Brouwers in Limerick. One of the things I just wanted to highlight that we have employed in our recent project looking at residential long-term care is that we applied a daily clock exercise. And so we went and we visited, as I said, 12 different case studies. And in each one, we did a number of focus groups. And this is one of the exercises that we did with the residents. And what we asked them to do was to take a typical day in their home and to color it in over a 24-hour period. And each color corresponds to a different built environment space. And I won't go through all of them, but just to reinforce the importance of a person's bedroom, the yellow that you see here in this daily clock, which represents 6 residents. So if you were to count them, you'd see each line is a resident, there's 6 there. The amount of time that people are spending in their bedroom is significant. Now we have to also recognize that some of this is personal preference, but also just to also understand that these rooms are critically important for people and how they view them and how they use them. So we had one resident in one of our case studies that said, my bedroom is where I sleep, where I eat, and where I greet people. So you can see now that this space is performing multiple functions. And so the design of these spaces is critical in terms of supporting quality of life for people in long-term care. And then finally, I just want to wrap up. I know this is quite quick and fast. And the next slide, I'm not going to go through this, but just to say, we've been doing a lot of work around the role of the built environment in supporting quality of life, quality of experience, and thinking about the materiality of care. And see, these are some of the things that we think about as a research center when it comes to thinking about care and how the built environment can support that. But what I did want to say was to go back to something that I said at the beginning as a bit of a wrap up here. And just to say again that we're all aging. And I think in understanding this, I think we can start to begin to imagine the value of the lived experience of a long life and older people as valuable citizens. So they carry wisdom, they're prone to more volunteerism in their later years, and they have a deep local knowledge and understanding of place, both in temporal and spatial dimensions, which is important in how we envision and design our urban places to be caring and people-centered, how we create and support sense of place, but also when we think about current challenges that we're facing, how we might address the complex challenges of climate change. And finally, also just to say that older people are important to the economy. And in one of our case studies in Mulranny, the residential setting there is one of the biggest local employers. It's a huge contributor to the economy, in addition to being, and I think this is really, really important into how we start to turn to shift our perceptions of nursing homes and ourselves as we age, that it is a really, really deep sense of pride for the community. And the residents there, when you ask them about this place, they say, well, it is the place to be. And I think that's a really lovely way to think about these places. So thank you
very much, Dimitra. And we are over time. We will not have time for discussion. We're also eating a little bit on the quality of care, but I've just heard that the final speaker in that session is not able to join us. So we've allowed a bit of overlap. And I do think that these two sessions are very related as well, because I think quite often when we think about quality of care, we forget about the built environment. And I hope that this is only the beginning of a discussion on the built environment and how we work with care homes to improve quality, to make them home-like places or actual homes. And I very much look forward to continuing the conversation.